Happy Saturday. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the live class. So we are going to practice tenses today because a lot of people asked me questions related to the tenses. Specifically okay, you're in Oregon, 6 a.m. Thank you for joining. So we're going to practice tenses, and for me, the more important thing is to connect the tenses to your real life. How can you use the tenses in a conversation? That's more important than just memorizing the grammar. You're not going to be able to use it in a conversation. So we have first, I want to talk about the present perfect and past tenses. For example, we have here the past tense. Can anyone give me an example of a sentence in the past tense? Maybe something that you did this past week, an example of a sentence in the past tense. And I'll do I think I can do this. I do a little flip. So give me a sentence in the past. We have, I was in a hurry. Nice. I was eating pizza yesterday. I brushed my hair in the morning. Nice. So I went to Paris last week. I wrote a letter to my brother yesterday. I went to visit my mother yesterday. Perfect. So if you don't understand, I'm going to put this in the chat. Give me a sentence in the past. I'll write it here so that everyone can see. I would say I went to the park yesterday. I moved to my current flat last week. I got up at 6 a.m. I was studying English yesterday. I played guitar yesterday. I went to work yesterday. Yesterday, I went to the supermarket and bought some fresh vegetables and fruits. I woke up early. Nice. So what a lot of you guys are doing is telling me about a specific time in the past, yesterday or this morning. And that is really great. Remember, whenever you're talking about a specific event that happened in the past, you're going to use the simple past tense, right? What you did yesterday. And this can be yesterday, but you can also use it to talk about a long time ago. So give me a sentence in the past with ago. Give me a sentence in the past with the word ago. And I have some more examples. You guys said, I had a chat with my friends this morning. Nice. And you can say this is a good example because this morning, if you say it in the past, I understand this past morning. So that's a good example of a phrase that you can use. I attended an English class with my teacher, Maggie. Nice. They found it 5 minutes ago. Exactly. I went to the park with my son. Just had a coffee with my friend moments ago. I met my friend 2 years ago. I studied physics 15 years ago. I visited the UK 3 years ago. I went to the store yesterday. I would say a few years ago, I used to play football on Sunday. I used to play tennis many years ago. Nice job. So this is something, especially if you're a Spanish speaker and you're accustomed to the phrase hace blah 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 años in the beginning. Remember that in English, ago goes at the end of the sentence. So it's when you're talking in a conversation, it helps to not translate from Spanish because you'll be backwards. I ate pizza 1 hour ago. I had an accident last year. When you say last year, it's not necessary the word the. I had an accident last year. Nice. I visited my grandparents 2 weeks ago. I had breakfast 2 hours ago. Remember to conjugate the verb in the past. I visited New York 3 years ago. Perfect. Okay, so we understand the past, specific events that happened, usually yesterday or ago. What about the present perfect tense? So this is a question that I have for everyone. When can we use the present perfect tense? When can we use the present perfect? When can we use the present perfect? And hello to everyone who's joining. We're talking about verb tenses today. If you need any examples of the past tense, everyone put really good examples in the chat. So you can see those examples there. Now I want us to talk about when can we use the present perfect. This is a tense that a lot of people don't use as much as they should because people feel more comfortable with the simple present and the simple past. The present perfect has two parts and people get maybe confused. So this is a good response. An action that is not finished yet. I've studied for my test in procurement. Yeah, I would say I've studied for my test in procurement today instead of this day. But yes, you can definitely use the present perfect. Because as Raul said, the exact time is not necessary to know. When the focus is on the action and not the time, with the action that started in the past but they are still not ended. Yes, I have been in New York. When the action is in the past and continues. All right, actions that started in the past and continue to the present. She's taught English for some years. So this is exactly why I think it's confusing sometimes for people, because there are actually two situations when we use the present perfect. Situation one is that the time is not important. So the time is not specified. And the situation two is it continues to now. So some people gave me some examples. Let me see. I have been working on a project for 2 years. Very good. And the word for is a common word used with the present perfect. Remember, this is especially for my Spanish speakers. I hear a lot of people say, I am working on a project for 2 years, or estoy trabajando en un proyecto desde hace 2 años. In English, this is not possible. We need to use the present perfect tense. I have been working on a project. As soon as you make that connection with the past, we need to be using the present perfect. You could say, I've attended your classes since last month, or I've been attending your classes since last month. In this case, it's okay. I've attended or I've been attending. You can say it in a continuous or simple way. Perfect. Life experiences, exactly. Yeah, I am working on my project, or I have been working on my project since last year. So these are the two situations. We can say the time isn't specified, like, have you ever been to Chile? Or we can also say that it continues. So I have been practicing English for 10 years. These are the two situations when we can use the present perfect tense. I've been studying for, I've been studying for procurement today. Yes, exactly. You can also say that. Exactly. So I'm going to ask you all questions using the present perfect or the simple past, and I want you to respond the best that you can. And this is because I want you to practice using the tenses in context, in common contexts, right? So I'll ask you a question, and I want you to respond how you would if we're in a conversation. First, I will say the question so you can practice your listening. Then I will write the question. So my first question is, what have you been watching lately? What have you been watching lately? And it's possible, I'm going to write the question also. It's possible that you can respond with the present perfect, I've been watching this, or you can respond with the simple past. Yesterday I watched this. So depending on how you want to respond, is it something that you've continued to watch or a movie you watched one time? You need to choose the correct tense. So the question is, what have you been watching lately? What have you been watching lately? Oh, you have friends, Chilean friends in Oregon. That's interesting. They always say, hay un chileno en todas partes. I have been working for 2 years, I would say. Ago is used with the past tense. So you can say, or you could say, I've been working since 2 years ago. You could say that if it's a specific moment. But I would say I've been working for 2 years is the most natural. I've been following you for almost a year. Nice, thank you. I've been watching new movies now. Or I would say lately is a more natural word to use with the present perfect. I've been watching Vikings lately. I've been watching a funny German show about vampires. Okay, I'm interested. I've been watching your lives lately. I've been watching my whole mental health falling apart. Okay, that's a good example. I've been watching a new TV series. I've been watching a new film lately. I've been watching your excellent videos since 3 days ago. Yes, it's okay to say lives because now alive is... we basically created this word with Instagram and social media. So it's like an invented word, but now it's a popular invented word. So it's okay to use. I've been watching you since 5 minutes ago. Okay, so this is a good question. Someone asked, I'd been watching a film. This is different because in this case, this is like the past of the past. You would say, I'd been watching a film when all of the sudden my brother came in and interrupted me. So you could say this not related to your recent action, but actually a past action when a different past action happened after it. So this is a different tense. This is the past perfect instead of the present perfect. I've been watching a thriller movie. Okay, this is also a good question. Sorry, I'm going to respond to some of these. Watch versus see a movie. So I would say if you ask the question, have you watched this movie or have you seen this movie? Both are good. But if you want to say the action of paying attention and, the action of actually absorbing the movie, I would say I've been watching, not I've been seeing. So if you ask it like to know if the person in general has seen the movie, you could use both. But if you're talking about the action that you were doing for those 2 hours, I would say I've been watching the movie. To refer to actually like your eyes are looking at the movie and you're absorbing the information, I would say watching is a better option. I've been watching Popeyes shows lately. I've been watching Korean TV series. Nice. Okay. Perfect. All right. We're going to go to the next, sorry, I'm trying to give some of you guys waves. Okay. We're going to go to the next question. So that's lately. Lately is a really good word to use. Now I'm going to ask you, what's something you've always done? And maybe in parentheses, I could say since childhood. So the question is, what's something you've always done since childhood? What's something you've always done since childhood? And also, yes, Veronica, watch. It's similar with listen versus hear, watch versus see. Watch and listen are related to attention. You're trying to see the information. Hear is like, oh, I heard a noise. Listen is like, I'm listening to music that I want to listen to. Similar with watch and see. So this is my question. What's something you've always done since childhood? So if possible, try to respond in a complete sentence, because if you respond with one word, that's good, but probably the part that's more difficult for a lot of people is forming the complete sentence or the structure of the sentence. So if you can, try to practice that, because I can help you give by giving some corrections if you need help structuring your sentence. I've always played soccer. I've always studied. I used to read a lot of books since my childhood. Yeah, this one is interesting because I understand that is like your past self and not now. So I would say I have read a lot of books since childhood, or if it's not true for you anymore, I used to read a lot of books in childhood. I've always walked in a park. I used to eat my breakfast. Again, this is something, when you say I used to, this is like a past habit that doesn't happen anymore. In Spanish, it would be solía hacer eso y ya no lo hago, would be in Spanish. I've always listened to Oasis. Nice. I've always been studying throughout my life. I always do 5 prayers a day. Okay, yes. Or I've always done 5 prayers a day. I have been studying English since 2023 or 2023. I've always studied since childhood. I've always walked in a park. Since my childhood, I have always prayed with the ED on the end to God every morning. So I have always prayed to God every morning would be the sentence. Since I was a child, I don't know what word that is. I've watched cartoons like Disney or Tom and Jerry. Yes. I've always watched something on TV. I have always played soccer with my friends. Nice. So that's a good, both of these, right? You're talking about something that started in the past, but continues until now. All right. I've been biting my nails since I was a girl. Perfect. And good use of since. This is another really important connector. When we're using the present perfect, we use the connectors since and for. Since and for. So we're going to use that in the next example. So I'll tell you without this first. Tell me about a project you've been working on. Use since or for. I'll repeat it. Tell me about a project you've been working on. Use since or for in your answer. Now I'll show you. Tell me about a project you've been working on. Use since or for in your answer. So this is to help you try to structure this in a conversation. Maybe you are meeting a new friend or you're catching up with a family member or friend. That's the kind of context when you can use this tense. Oh, what have you been up to? What have you been working on? What's going on with you? And you can respond, I've been working on a building on my farm for 2 months. Nice. That's a good example. If you don't have a project, do you have any interest? Like, I've been using Duolingo, or I've been listening to something, or I've been reading something. I've been trying to improve my habits. So if you don't have a project, you can also mention a habit or activity that you've been doing lately. Think of this situation if someone says, hey, what have you been up to? What's new with you? Think of the response that you can give to this person. In my retraining, I was working on a group project about sustainable projects that we had to make up by ourselves. Nice. I have been working on, remember working on in English, working on a software project for 8 months. I've been working on improving my listening skills for ages. That's a good one. This phrase, for ages, this is like for a long time, for ages. I have been working on analyzing project work since, here I would say for 2 years. If it's the duration of time, use for 2 years. If you say since, it needs to be a specific moment. So you can say for 2 years or since 2 years ago. Since I graduated. Since 2020. For 6 months. So that's the difference of with since and for. Since is a specific moment and for is that duration of time. I've been trying to understand English since 2008. Nice. I've been working on improving the house since last year. I've learned English since 2022. Here I would maybe, because when we use the continuous, it emphasizes that this is continuing. So it sounds even more natural to say I've been learning English since 2022 because it shows that also right now you're continuing to do that. So I would recommend to use the continuous tense if you want to really show that it's something you're doing at this very moment as well. Yeah, you can talk about your new job also, definitely. I've been at my new job for 6 months. I've been working on my house since I was 50 years old. I have been trying to impress my teachers since childhood. Yeah. Oh my God, I accidentally pressed like a filter. Wait. Okay. So it's better than, I don't know if any of you guys were in the live that one time I turned into a slug. That was pretty bad. I've been working on improving my English for a long time. Nice. I've been planning to move to Dublin for 2 years. Yeah, this is also a good example when you're talking about a plan. Even if the action is not a physical action, You can use this tense to talk about planning or thinking. I've been thinking about you a lot recently, for example. We've worked on a project about sustainability for a whole day and presented it on the same day. Nice. I've been planning a trip since January. So I'm going to ask one more similar question before we continue to something different. This is to emphasize the fact that we don't only use the present perfect for physical actions. You can also use it to express your plans, thoughts, and ideas. So I can say, imagine that you are with a friend and the friend says, "Hey, you seem quieter than usual. What's been on your mind?" You seem quieter than usual. What's been on your mind? So imagine your friend says this to you. And here the S is has, right? This is the present perfect tense also. So the question is, what has been on your mind? And to respond to a question like this, you could say something like, "Yeah, I've just been thinking a lot recently. I think that I'm not in the right career for me," or "Nothing, I've been okay. I've just been busy," for example. So imagine someone says this to you. What is a good response that you could say to this person? "You seem quieter than usual. What's been on your mind?" What's been on your mind? This is like saying, what have you been thinking about? What's been on your mind? You can say, "I've had a lot on my mind," or "I haven't had much on my mind." So this is like to ask someone, what have you been thinking about recently? "I've had a lot on my plate lately, like studying for my retraining for weeks." Very good example with the present perfect and for. "I've been trying to figure out why my girlfriend is mad at me." Another very good example. And also I like this phrasal verb, to figure out, is like to, is like to discover or resolve, to understand. "I've been thinking about my job." Nice. So if you're joining, we're practicing the present perfect with different situations. This is one situation we have. If a friend says to you, "You seem quieter than usual. What's been on your mind?" What's been on your mind? So some people already had some really good responses to this question. If you guys want to check what the other people wrote, there's some really good examples. Good morning. "I have been thinking about my bills." Yes, that is very relatable. I have been thinking about my bills. Bills are like the accounts that you need to pay, like your electricity bill, your water bill, gas bill. I've been reassessing my latest decisions or my recent decisions instead of last. I've been reassessing my latest decisions. I've been thinking about being a mother. I have been thinking about my vacation. I've been thinking about moving to a new country in a couple of years from now. Nothing specific. I've just been sleeping very little in the last days. I would say it sounds more natural in the past few days. In the past few days would sound more natural here with this sentence. Nice. Okay. I have been suffering about my ass. What do you mean? Like, does your butt hurt? That's a very interesting phrase. I have been thinking about how to improve my N-body algorithm. I don't know what that means. But yeah, then I guess your friend will say, what do you mean by that? I have been thinking about travel next week. You guys crack me up. I've been drinking not enough coffee today. Yeah, me neither. I haven't had enough coffee today. This brings us to my next example. So here's the thing. The present perfect we can use when the action hasn't finished, but we can also use it when the time period hasn't finished either, right? So we're in the year 2024. I can't say, well, you can talk about different things that you finished this year, right? Like you can say, this year I got a scholarship, I got a new job, talking about specific actions that you finished this year. But you can also say different things that you have done so far this year. So this is the word so far. I can say, for example, how has your year been so far? Or what have you done so far this year? And if it's something that happened once in a very specific way, you can respond with the past tense. But if you want to use the present perfect, it would be something more general. So I'll give you an example. If I say, what have you done so far this year? What have you done so far this year? So if I want to talk about something very specific that happened in a specific time, I can say, I went to my sister's wedding, or I visited my family in the past tense. But if I want to talk about an action that happened maybe a lot of different times and not in one specific situation, I would say, for example, I have had a lot of new students this year, or so far this year. I have had a lot of new students so far this year. I have made a lot of videos so far this year. I'm not talking about one specific video. I'm talking about an activity that I did in different situations that maybe will continue. Because so far means until now. Si hablas español, esto significa hasta ahora, right? So until now is the idea. What have you done so far this year? I would say so far this year, I have been going to college. So far this year, I have been going to college. Or, yeah, that would be the most natural word order for this. So far this year, I have been going to college. Not much so far, I've just been working. Nice. All right. And hello, if you're joining, we're practicing different phrases and situations when you can use the present perfect tense in your daily life. So I like to practice this sort of thing because a lot of you maybe study the present perfect tense with the verbs and the verb chart, but then in a conversation, it's like, when do I use this? So We're giving examples when you can actually use it in a conversation. Talking about your year so far is one example. I've worked a lot all year. Yes. Or even I've worked a lot so far this year. Both of those would be perfect. And the phrase so far is not a requirement. It just adds a little bit more meaning. It's a time marker. So far this year, I've been working as hard as usual. Nice. And yes, the present perfect is used a lot by native speakers. For example, the present perfect is really necessary if you start something in the past and continue to now. So if I say, yeah, I've been working a lot on this project, or I've been listening to this music a lot recently. So talking about recent habits, we use the present perfect. Talking about things like, for example, asking someone about their experiences. Have you ever been to China? Have you ever been to Japan? So in these kind of situations, it's really necessary, the present perfect. But the British English, they use it even more because they also use it with completed past situations. In American English or United States English, I would say, I just got home. But a British person would say, I've just got home. I have just gotten home. So they use it even more, in the British English. The one that's not as common is the past perfect. I had done. But the present perfect, I have done, is very common. What is the difference between I've started with the retraining so far this year and I've been starting with the retraining so far this year? This is a good question. I would say with the verb start specifically, it's better to use the simple tenses because if you say I've started something, it shows that you had this initiation of the event, that in one moment it began. If you say I've been starting, it sounds like maybe it was a long process to start, or that it didn't start in one exact moment. It was kind of like an ongoing process to start. For example, I could say I started a new diet. I started a new diet, or I have started a new diet. That means just that I began to use this new diet. But if I say I've been starting a new diet, this is like maybe every day I make a small change. Like it's a process to start because it's a continuous process. So unless that's your intention, with the word start, I recommend the simple tenses because to start and finish usually is in one instance and not continuous, unless it's a specifically complicated situation. What's the difference between have you ever been to China and have you ever been in China? Both of those are okay. You can hear a native speaker say both. I think the more natural one would be been to China, but that's more related to like to go somewhere. And then have you ever been in China? It doesn't emphasize that you went there, just that you existed in China. But you can hear people use them in the exact same way. I wouldn't say that there's an important difference. And no, so Completed actions, I'm responding to this question. People in the United States use the present perfect to say, like, I've been to China or I've done this without a specific time. We do use it in that case. But when it's something like a small action, like I've just gotten home, or not talking about an experience you had, talking about a small action you did, like a task, we don't really use it in that way, the way that British people do. But we do use it to talk about non-specific past actions, like I've seen Batman, I've been to China. Also, I like your comment, English with Will. We tried building a tower. And yeah, of course, I know it's a little bit, there's a lot of complexity to these grammar rules. So I would say that just by continuing, be observant, continue to watch when are people using the tenses. Whenever, the thing too is, in general, we always shorten it. So we say I've instead of I have. So you might hear this tense a lot and not realize that you're hearing this tense. So we've talked about continuing actions. It's also common to use the present perfect, talking about an action that happened without saying when. Have you ever gone to China? It's a lot more natural, have you ever been to China versus gone. Yeah. Gone is emphasizing more the journey, but the actual experience of visiting, it's more common to say, have you ever gone to China? Or have you ever been to China? But both are grammatically correct. Both are fine. But been will be more common from native speakers. Imagine that you're getting to know a friend for the first time. You don't know that much about this person. So you want to ask them questions. What's a question that you can ask with have you ever in the present perfect to ask this person about something that they've done? We have a good example. Have you ever danced samba? Have you ever seen a giant panda? Have you ever been to Brazil? Nice examples here. Have you ever? Maggie, have you ever been to Venezuela? I have not. I would be interested to go, but I have not been to Venezuela yet. If you want to emphasize that you want to do this, but it hasn't happened yet, you can add yet. So I could say, for example, I haven't been to Venezuela, or I can say I haven't been yet, but in the future I want to. So you can use yet to show maybe you have an intention to do the action. Have you ever been to Berlin, Maggie? No, I haven't been to Berlin yet. I need to practice my German. I need to go to Berlin and speak to the local people who will probably respond to me in English because probably their English is better than my German, but I'll try anyway. This is a good one. I want to know, have you ever seen the rain? I don't know, do any of you guys know that song that Jazz wrote here? It's a good song. Have you ever been to Argentina? Yes, I have been to Argentina. It's a very nice country. I've been to Buenos Aires and Cordoba, but I know it's a big country, so there's a lot of places that I haven't been. Would you ever, I would say, would you ever go to Brazil? Here, because you're using the infinitive, I would say go, and then when we're using the participle, we use been. It's kind of weird. We use been as the participle when we're talking about go in English. It's a little bit weird. Have you ever been to or in Mexico City? No, I've never been to Mexico City either, but I have heard that the food is delicious, and I would be very interested to see the cultural landmarks like the museums. Have you ever read a book with more than 500 pages? Not that I can remember. I don't think so. I've read book series where the collective number of pages was, but I don't think I've ever read a single book. I know some fantasy books I've read have been a lot of pages, but nothing comes to mind. Have you ever eaten snake meat? No. Have you? Have you ever eaten snake meat? Also, you're welcome for the class. Have you ever played rugby? No, I haven't. Have you ever played rugby? Has anyone here ever played rugby? You can't ask with go. Here's the thing. You could say, did you go? If you're talking about a specific time, like a specific event in the past, you can say, did you go to Argentina last year? But when you're talking about in general, in someone's life, we are going to say, has ido. So for that reason, you don't say fuiste. Have you been, or has visitado. So have you been to Argentina? We would use been because of the tense. If you're talking about a specific year, you could say, did you go? If you have a specific, or if you tell me, Maggie, I'm going to the United States, and then I see you the next week, I could say, oh, did you go to the United States? You told me you were going to go. Have you ever fallen? Remember with the EN, have you ever fallen in love? Yes, I have. Have you ever fallen in love? Welcome to Mexico. Okay, I'll have to tell you guys if I go to Mexico. Have you ever been in the Red Sea? No, I haven't. I would love to also go to the Red Sea. Have you ever read Don Quixote in the original or in English? Yes, I have. Not the whole thing. For a Spanish class, we needed to read part of the book. Have you ever read the Bible? Yes, I have. I used to go to church when I was younger. Have you ever been to Bolivia? No, I haven't. I would also, all of the places you guys tell me, I'm going to say, oh, I would love to go there. Have you ever sung in front of an audience? I don't know. Do you guys count as an audience? Because sometimes I sing in the live class. But that's a good one with sung, the participle. Have you ever thought teaching English, I would change the order of the sentence. Have you ever thought teaching English is difficult? Yes, I have, because I think some things don't have an explanation. They just are. So that's obviously difficult to explain to a student learning a language. So I think sometimes English is hard to language is not always logical, so it can be difficult to teach. Have you ever given a speech in front of a large audience? Personally, I have, because I have presented at a conference when I was in university. I studied geography before becoming an English teacher. Have you ever had a crush on a star? Yes. Let me think. Definitely. I don't even remember who have I had a crush on? I think when I was younger, I kind of had a crush on Zac Efron when I was younger. Not really now. I think he got kind of a lot of plastic surgery. Not that means Not to judge him, but I don't have a crush on him anymore. Do have any of you had a crush on a celebrity? Have you ever played piano? I've been learning to play piano on Duolingo because now Duolingo has a music app. So that's kind of interesting. Have you ever taught someone from Serbia? Yes, actually. Well, this week I had a student from Russia but lives in Serbia. So I have taught someone from Serbia, but not from Serbia, but lives in Serbia. Oh, geography was one of your favorite subjects in school. And hello, welcome, Alexis. I had a crush on Rachel Weisz. Ooh. I don't know. I think I've had a crush. We talked once in a class about Keanu Reeves. I think I've had a crush on Keanu Reeves because he just has like this very cool energy about him. I'm learning Japanese on Duolingo. Awesome. Have you ever been in Colombia? No, I haven't. And this week in the English class, someone was telling me, we were talking about Colombian coffee and how you can try, go to a coffee plantation and try the coffee there. And I was like, wow, I need to go. Have you ever had a longer conversation in German? I recently was, in my German class, we practiced a little bit with the past this week. So I had a little bit more to say. I needed to stop and think a lot, but we are working on the past tense now. So that was a lot. It was probably how some of you guys feel now with this class. This is a good question here. I'm going to pin it. Is there a difference in he's gone and he's been? When you're talking about a place specifically, he's been is kind of just like emphasizing the existence of the person in the place. Like he has basically existed in China. Like his body has been in this country. And he's gone is more emphasizing the journey, if that makes sense. But just by custom, it's more common when you're talking to someone about visiting places in English that we say, have you been there? And that's just by custom. So it's more common to use, have you been there, when we're talking about visiting countries. But for example, if I'm talking to my husband about like house chores and I say, oh, have you already gone to the store? When I'm emphasizing leaving the house to do something, in that case, I would say, have you already gone to the store? Or have you gone to the doctor yet? In that kind of situation where you're emphasizing leaving, I would use more gone. But then visiting a country, we have the tendency to use been. Also, I think the blender is being used here. So if you guys hear a sound, it's my blender. But I know that's a little confusing about been and gone. I'm gonna think about that a little bit more to see if I can give a clearer explanation. Have you ever made a snowman? Yes. And also I know that's a question. Have you ever seen China? In that case, I could say yes, because I've seen pictures of China, but I've never seen China in person. I've never been to China. My teacher for IT looks a bit like Keanu Reeves. Ooh, that's so funny. Yes, sometimes when someone has died, people say he's gone. Yeah, that's true. Or he's passed. This live is actually ending because I've been on here for an hour. That was an example of the present perfect. So now that you guys know that it's so common, the present perfect, you'll notice me use it all the time. I've been on this live for an hour, so I'm going to finish here and I'll post it for all of you to see afterwards. So, thank you so much for joining today and for giving all of your great examples in the present perfect. I hope that you can just take maybe a couple situations from this live of how you can use the present perfect in your daily life. Little by little, don't feel like you need to memorize all the situations, but if you can just think, for example, I've been doing this for 3 years, or I've had a good week so far, or, any kind of situation you can take from this, you're one step closer to fluency than you were yesterday. So little by little, everyone, is the best way to go when you're learning verb tenses.